Overlapping and Shadow with Mr. G. All right, today, blank sheet of paper. We are talking about overlapping. We'll be talking about shadows pretty soon too, but we're going to start out with overlapping. So what that means, let's just pretend that I had a piece of paper, like a little square piece of paper. This is kind of demonstrating what overlapping is. So I've got a regular piece of paper, beautiful piece of paper right there. Now I'm going to throw another piece of paper on top of that, but obviously I can see through it, and I don't want it to be transparent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase the lines that the second paper is overlapping so we can't see them anymore. If I throw a third piece of paper on here, guess what I got to do? I got to erase those lines as well. Now, let's just say I wanted to put another piece of paper behind a piece of paper. Now I've kind of got the idea of what overlapping looks like, so I can pretend to use those lines. I don't even have to do any erasing. I just know that they're there. So this is the concept of overlapping. It's quite simple when you get a hold of it, and then you just make pretend lines. The second thing that we're looking at today and using is shadow. So shadows are created by a light source. So we're going to pretend that the light source is kind of coming from above, maybe a little bit from the right side. And then we just put a light little shadow behind these pieces of paper, these little squares. And then it creates an illusion of depth. So it kind of makes them 3D. And then once we put the little shadows on there, we want to soften them up just a little bit. So we'll take a Q-tip. We've done this before. And then you just kind of soften it up. And then once I soften them up, then I'm going to go back and sharpen the edges just a little bit with a pencil. You can, of course, use your finger or maybe a paper towel or a blending tortillon for this too. Now I'm just going to demonstrate the basis for what we're doing today. So I'm just going to draw a straight ribbon. I'm going to go one up and down and then the other one side to side. So one vertically and one horizontally. And now I got to figure out, okay, which line is on top and which one's on bottom, which ribbon's on top, which one's on the bottom. A good way to do this is to see those lines is just to put your finger over your other finger, and you can kind of decide which one is which is on top, which is on the bottom, and then follow those lines. If you use that, you'll be able to do your overlapping every single time because you'll see where those lines are. That makes things really easy. If I want this to go under, then I'm just going to put my finger that's going up and down on top, and then you'll see where those lines are. And then we just erase these lines. And then you can kind of sharpen up those lines that are on the side. And you don't have to do those very hard because we're using colored pencil today anyway, so you don't want to really see your pencil. This is really important now. Notice the way that I am holding my pencil. I'm holding it away from the back and I'm just letting it go up and down very slightly. It allows you to cover a lot more area. You're using kind of the side of your pencil lead, and you can do this really softly, and it'll make it a lot easier to blend in the end too, rather than using your the tip of your pencil tightly. This will make it a lot easier to blend as well. So we're just going to cover those up. This just can pretend that at this point this is your colored pencil because we won't be doing this with regular pencil. But you could do it if you wanted to try it out. So you notice how evenly it covers everything up, and it does it pretty quickly too. Just make sure that you're doing it soft, and then you can always erase if you need to. Well, I suppose if it's colored pencil you won't need to. Now we're going to look at where those shadows are. Once again, you can use your finger to see where the shadows are. I'm pointing out the places where the shadow is on this, and those are the areas that I'm going to darken on either side of that. So once again, if you look at my finger there and my finger there on the left side, you'll see that there's a shadow. It's creating a shadow, and then it'll be on the top there. So you see where those shadows are at, and that's kind of what we're doing here is we're adding those shadows underneath. So the thing that is going underneath, that's the one that's going to have the shadow on it. And once again, we'll just use a Q-tip to soften that shadow to make it look nicer. Now for our project today, we're going to be using a half sheet of paper, and then we're going to draw kind of curvy ribbons. They don't have to be any particular shape. You just kind of let them flow. And once you draw your first line, then you draw a second line parallel. That means going the same direction right along with it, and do your best to try to make that as even as possible. And you can put these anywhere you want to. What I'm trying to do is probably just fill the page with ribbons. Not too many, but not enough can be not as exciting also. So just remember to do this very lightly and very slowly. The slower you go, the probably the easier. So another reason to draw lightly is it's going to be easier to erase later on. And you're going to be doing some erasing, with the overlapping like we just showed. So you just finish up with ribbons, try to fill the space, and maybe make some really interesting crossovers. Now, once we have all the ribbons, you're going to notice that we have all these spaces that we need to figure out what's going to overlap. So what I do is I like to pick one ribbon and then just go all the way across with it and try to decide. So my first one's going to be on top. And so I erased the lines there. And then maybe I'll fix the line just a little bit in case I erased it. And then I'm going to go with the next one. And the next one's going to be underneath. So again, like if you want to do it with your finger, try to figure out that which is on top, which is on the bottom. That might help you with which lines to erase. I know this can be complicated. It doesn't seem like it should be, but sometimes it can be. And then I'm just going to continue with the same ribbon, decide that that one is going to be on top of the other ribbon. And we're going to do this kind of throughout the whole page. So it'll be up to you how many ribbons you decide to make, and then you'll realize that that's kind of the work that you have to do. This one's going to go under the other ribbon, and I bet that I'm going to choose that this one's going to go over. Yep. And so we'll do that with all of the little intersections, and then once we're done with that, we can start filling them in with whatever colors you want to. This isn't necessarily about color. I chose a cool color scheme for this one. I think I just went with blues and purples. But I did find that it's a lot more interesting if you choose a lot of different colors. So we're going to fill it in, once again, using the side of my hand. And now I'm going to do something called scumbling. This is really popular with colored pencils. It's just making tiny, light little circles. Just really lightly, and then you can go over. If you want it to be darker, you just kind of go over the same area. And then you're creating a gradient. Remember, a gradient is when one darker color goes into a lighter color. It can go into any color really, but it's just that change. It's a gradual change, a gradient. So I'm going to put the shadow underneath there, and then I'm going to create kind of a gradient going out just a little bit lighter. Then we're going to fill it all in, do some scumbling there, and we'll fill the whole thing out. This part we really don't have to watch. Maybe I'm just going to give you a couple of examples of just filling in that shadow. This is really something that you probably could do with crayon or even marker. I think marker can get darker the more you put it on. And then we'll just fill the whole paper out. And this whole project is really about overlapping and shadows. That's the two things that we're learning today. So it's kind of a simple project, but it can turn out to be really neat too. And it's enjoyable. I don't think it's very difficult, but I think that it can be enjoyable because you get the creativity of colors and how your ribbons interact with each other. And the result ends up being pretty cool, if you get those shadows in there right. And I'll give you just one final example of another one that I did. I did about 3 or 4 of these. And so here is one of those that at least I recorded. And there you have it. Have fun. Thanks for watching.